Okay. All right. We're in Catalucan. Now, if you have your Bible, that'll work, or you have your iPhone, iPad, your Droid, whatever, type in or turn to Luke chapter 6, and we get it beginning at verse 27 again. I want to make emphasis on my title one more time. You want me to love who? Part 2. Now, we started this last week. Let's read our text, and then we'll jump back in and try to catch it all up. Luke 6:27 says, "But I tell you who hear me, love your enemies, do good for those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. If someone strikes you on the cheek, turn to him the other also. If someone takes your cloak, do not stop him from taking your tunic. Give to everyone who asks you. And if anyone takes what belongs to you, do not demand it back. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. And if you lend to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners, expecting to be repaid in full. But love your enemies and do good to them and lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then, after you've done all of that, then your reward will be great. Here's the reward. And you will be sons, daughters, children of the Most High. Because He is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just like your daddy. Just as your Father is merciful. Jesus has this radical, upside-down, insane notion that people who are serious about Him, who are followers of Him, His disciples, will love their enemies. Weird. So we began this study several weeks back on the Sermon on the Plain. We've talked about a lot of things. We did this exact same passage last week, but I only was able to get to verse 28, and we felt to stop and catch up again this week. And one of the most difficult things for me to do is try to jump into the center of a passage and make it make sense. In fact, I don't know that that's possible because it's all so connected. So what I've got to do is just a little recap, so tolerate me. I know it's difficult to rehear what you've already heard. I understand that. But I'm going to get there as fast as I can because it's so important that we're all on the same bus to get it. So, the bottom line of what we're learning here on this Sermon on the Mount, well, the bottom line of what we're seeing here is Jesus is telling us, teaching us, instructing us how to know if we're real. Am I really a son, a daughter, a child of God? Are you real? Or are you just playing the church game? Are you real? Are you deceived into thinking you're saved when you're really not? And so what this sermon is doing is identifying and letting us know whether we are or whether we're not. And Jesus said, and we've read it already, I'm going to read it again, and then we'll study it in just a few minutes. But Jesus says this, just to show you where we're at here. Luke 6:32 says this, "If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you?" There is no eternal credit there. There is nothing there. God's not impressed. Even sinners love those who love them. That's what sinners do. You're a sinner if you do that. You're not who you think you are. You're not saved. You're a sinner. Keep going. And if you do good for those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? These are rhetorical questions. Again, no credit. God's not impressed. I'm not getting anything from this. Even sinners do that. I'm no different from a sinner. And if you lend to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners expecting to be repaid in full. That's how sinners live. And Jesus is saying, if this is how you live, You're a sinner. You're lost. You're far from God. And so he's describing here how this works out for us and how to see where we're really at or if we're playing the church game. Now, Luke 6:27 says this, "But I tell you who hear me," I'll talk about that later, "love your enemies, do good for those who hate you." Love your enemies. That's the problem. We have no problem acquiring enemies. Am I right? Terry was talking about it earlier. I am 49 years old. I just lied. I am 63 years old. And I still have this unique ability to acquire enemies. And so it's amazing to me. See, we don't have any trouble there. We get the enemy part. It's the love part that we have difficulty with. And the reason is because this is not a natural love. This is not something we understand. We understand how to get enemies. We don't understand how to love them. And the reason is this is a love the world is not familiar with. We understand all those other kinds of love. Put them up there real fast for me. I taught them last week, so just running through them now. We understand eros love. It's an erotic love, a sensual love. We understand phileo love. It's the desire to do something. I love to go fishing. You love to go shopping, whatever that you love to do. Philo love, Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. It's the love for your family, love for people like that. And then Sturgos love is a natural affection. There's just some people I just love. I just like to be with them. We understand all of those. That's not the problem. It's this love that he uses, agapao love. This is strange love. And in all of the writings but prior to Jesus, there was very little even written using this word. Jesus took it and developed it just for us, just for the people that are serious about God and want to be real sons and daughters of God. And this agape, it's agapao. The difference is it's not springing from emotions. All those spring from emotions and desires and lust and all of those things. This isn't that love at all. This love is the love we decide to do. We will to do. We actually make ourselves to do. And it doesn't matter if the person wants to be loved or not. We love them. Whether they deserve it or not, we love them. It's not built on it feels good, because it doesn't. It's built on it's the love God has. And it's the love that we have if we're children of God. It's the love that we have for people. God not only loves us this way, but this is the love God is. This is what God is. God is love, right? So, in what I'm about to read you, what I want you to focus on and make sure you understand, if this love is not in you, you are not in God. And God is not in you. Read it to you. 1 John chapter 4, verse 16. And so we know and rely on the love, agape, God has for us. God is love. Now watch. Whoever lives in love or has the life of love, whoever lives in love, lives in God, and God in him. If this is not in you, you have not been infected with Jesus. Because agape love, Jesus took, developed, and infects us with it. The only way you get this love is to know and to get around Jesus. Then, when it happens, this proves you're in God and that God is in you. If you don't love your enemies, love people, you're not a child of God. And you're deceived. You're playing a church game. You're lost. A few verses down from that, I just read you 4:16. Let me read you, and you can read this whole section here where John is talking about this love. But in 1 John 4:20, just a few verses below that, he says this: if anyone says, I love God, yet hates his brother, tolerates hate, he's what does it say? He's a liar. What does that mean? It means he's deceiving other people. He's really not in God. God's really not in him. He's probably deceiving his own self or her own self. You're a liar. You're deceived. For anyone who does not love his brother whom he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen. If we tolerate hatred, whether it's hatred from us to someone or from someone to us, we're not in God. God's not in us. And we're playing the church game. And we're deceived. And so in this sermon, Jesus is hitting on this. And he's making it clear. You got to look at the fruits you produce. You got to look at how you condemn and criticize people. You got to look at how you tolerate hate in your life. So, verse 27. Now, leave this one up there for me, please, when I read it. But I tell you who hear me, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you. He says, I want you to hear this. Get this. Can you hear this? Can you hear about this love thing? It's important. If you're a disciple, if you're serious about God, if you're truly a child of God, you'll hear it. Now, love your enemies. Agapao, your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. I asked you this question last week, asking you one more time this week. Is your enemy someone you hate, according to this verse? And what Jesus says is your enemy someone you hate or someone who hates you? Talk to me so we can move on. All right, somebody who hates you. We got that. See? I want you to see that because it's so important that you see. You're not supposed to hate anybody. If you're a child of God, forgiveness is supposed to work through all of that. You know that. God can't forgive you unless you forgive. And so this works through all of us. This forgiveness stuff, we can't, like we just read from 1 John, we can't tolerate hating somebody else. We've got to fix it. Jesus says here, so when you're talking about this hate, you can't let people hate you. You got to fix it. You got to love those people. You got to address this thing. You got to fix this thing. So let's put a face or faces on that word enemies. Who are your enemies? Is it an ex-spouse? Could be a current spouse. A current spouse in heaven. It could be a parent. I've seen this. Joyce Myers talks about it all the time, how she hated her father for what he did to her when she was a child, but she worked through the forgiveness and the agapao. I've seen this. It can be a child. Parents hate sometimes their children because of the way their children abuse their parents, use their parents. Sad. It can be an employer. Mistreated you. Could be an employee. It can be anything. It can be someone you betrayed. It's somebody for whatever reason hates you, despises you, talks about you, looks for ways to hurt you. But if you're a child of God, Jesus says here, you won't tolerate it. You'll fix it. You don't turn your head and act like it's not there. You don't play the church game, just come to church, but yet you got hate in your life. You got to fix it. You can't turn. It's important. You can't play like it's not important because it's important to God. It's important to Jesus. Jesus died so you can fix this. Jesus died so we cannot have hate. We can destroy hate. You don't play like it's not there. You're in jeopardy if you allow hate, if you tolerate hate. You're in jeopardy. And Father sees this, and so Father says, fix it. Fix it. How do we do that, Delbert? We did it last week. I'm going to go through it as fast as I can. Jesus gives us in this sermon 3 steps. Step 1 is this. He says, do good, verse 27, do good to those who hate you. Do good to them. Find a way. God will make a way. If you pray and you're serious about this, what God will do is He'll make a time and a place where you can actually do good for somebody who hates you, your worst enemy. You can do good. Now, I want to make sure you get it. Jesus doesn't say, go try to make them your best friend. He does not say, call them on the telephone every day. Go to their house. He doesn't say all that stuff. He doesn't say that. See, there are some people that are toxic, and you cannot afford to get around them for a very long time, but you can destroy the hate that's there. And so what Jesus is saying here is you fix it. You fix it. And the first thing in stepping into this, the first step into doing this is find a way of doing something good for them. Number one, do something good. Destroy the hate. He's not after making buddies. What he's after is destroying hate. Step 2, bless those who curse you. Verse 28. Bless those who curse you. When somebody's saying these god-awful things about you, how do you respond? What you got to do is hold in that natural response and respond with agape. You got to say something good. You got to squeeze out good things about the person. I don't know any good thing about the person. Oh, yeah, you do. You got close enough for them to hate you. You just don't want to say it. Most of the people that hate us are good people. And so you squeeze out, you say the right, you bless them, you bless back what they're saying. That's agapao. That's the love God wants us to express. And then step 3, pray for those who mistreat you. Verse 28. Pray for those who mistreat you. Now the emphasis here, I was praying for, right? Pray for those, not against. I was told last week about this little clip, and so I want to show it to you now. This is not the thoughts of the ministry here, but this is this little clip, and I thought it would be kind of cute just to look at, because this is how we usually pray for people who hate us. Anybody ever prayed that way? Yeah. I've done that. I have. But that's not what Jesus is teaching. Don't go to Psalms, find those imprecatories, break their arms, knock their teeth out. Don't put on their head what they're saying about you. That's not what a child of God does. That's not what we do. You find a way to pray for them. It's hard. To me, it's harder than doing good for them or to bless them. Say so. To me, this is the toughest part because I really don't want to do it. I got to make myself. I got to agapao it. But you find something. Maybe their kids weren't involved in the hatred aspects of it, and so maybe you can pray, bless their children, or maybe you can say, bless their cat, bless their dog. But you find some way to get in there, and start. And once you're in there and you start, then you'll start moving up. Maybe bless their occupation, bless their finances, bless their health. Finally, you'll say, Lord, bless them so they can forgive me. Father, mostly of all, please forgive me for what I did to them. And now you're a child of God. And this is what Jesus says. I want to give you these 3 things. You make yourself do this. You decide to do this. It doesn't feel good until after it's all over and you've destroyed hate. Now that feels good. Allow God to infect your heart with agapao. You can't do this without God in you. And so this is the importance of understanding what Jesus is saying here. You got to come to the place you say, Father, forgive them. Forgive me. We've got to see people the way God sees people. People are to love and not hate. People are to die for and not kill. And it's so tough when you hate and they hate. You got to get through it. You work through it with forgiveness, and then you work for them through these 3 steps. Now, okay, new stuff. All right, fresh stuff. That's where we quit last time. After giving these 3 steps of agapao, or the life of love, after Jesus did this, he amplified those sayings with hyperboles. Now, I taught about hyperboles a couple of weeks ago as we began studying this, because if you don't understand the importance of hyperboles in the Scriptures, you will never understand the things of Jesus, and you'll never hear what he's trying to say. Hyperbole. So I've tried to figure a different way of coming across with it to you. How many are familiar with the term hype? You hype something up. You got that hype? Well, it comes from hyperbole. How about you have a hyper child? Maybe you have one, or maybe you know of one. See, the child is hyperbolic. He's hyper. He's exaggerated. He's everywhere. And this is what this word, the hype comes from the word hyperbole. So let me show you the definition of this word hyperbole. Hyperbole is an intentional, obvious exaggeration. Let's look at that. He's not stretching the truth like we do sometimes, to cover up something or to get ourselves, innocent looking. No, that's not what he's doing. It's an obvious truth. It's an intentional, obvious exaggeration to create emphasis or effect. It's used to evoke strong feelings, helping the hearer remember. But here's the important part. It's not meant to be taken literal. You don't take this literal. Delbert, are you saying don't take Jesus literal? Are you saying that Jesus exaggerated? Yes. Are you saying Jesus hyped things up? Yes. Just like you and I do. Okay. How many has ever said something like this? I've done that 1,000,000 times. 1,000,000 times? What are you saying? You're hyping it up. You've done it a lot. You've done it over and over. You could probably do it in your sleep. But have you done it 1,000,000 times? How about this one? My back is killing me. Or my knee, or my elbow, or my shoulder, whatever. Is it really? Or is it hurting? You're in pain. You're in discomfort. How about this one? I died laughing. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You might have cried. You might have juggled until you hurt. But you're still there. You just hyped that thing to make a point. It was humorous. It was funny. This isn't a hyperbole. And this is what Jesus did. Now, I used several last time when I initially taught it. I'm only going to use 2 today because we want to get this passage completed. Okay? So let's look at a couple of them that Jesus used. Luke 18:25. Indeed, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. There was no camel gate or eye of the needle gate in Jerusalem. Jesus is using an hyperbole. It's impossible for a camel to go through an eye of a needle alive. Impossible. What's his point? It's even more impossible for a greedy person to get into the kingdom of heaven. This is his point. He's making an exaggeration, obvious exaggeration. Let's use another one. Matthew 5:29. If your right eye causes you to sin, gouge it out and throw it away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It's better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. So, when I taught this the first time, let's get the saws out, the eyeball gougers out. Let's line up because we got some work to do. No, it's an obvious exaggeration. He's hyping the thought. It's an hyperbole. He's coming across with this thing to amplify it. What's his thought here? Cut anything out of your life, off your life. Gouge it out. Get rid of it somehow, whatever it takes, to avoid going to hell. This can be relationships, sins. It can be mentalities and ways of thinking, addictions. Mentalities will take you to hell. The Jews went to hell because of their mentality. They're thinking about Jesus. Mentalities are one of the main things that will take us to hell. So what he's saying is cut that stuff off. Get rid of it. Gouge it out. So you can't take everything Jesus said literally. Now, that sounds blasphemous, doesn't it? But you really can't. Because if you do, you're going to be cutting off parts of your body. And I have heard of people, men, taking this literal. Listen, please don't do that. So you got to understand the power of hyperboles in the teaching ministries of Jesus Christ if you're ever going to really hear what he's got to say. So the first hyperbole he uses in the passage in which we're looking today is this one, Luke 6:29. If someone strikes you on one cheek, let him hit you again. Turn to him the other also. Here, buddy. And that's better interpreted literally punch you in the jaw. The word is jaw there. It's a knockout punch. And so is Jesus here teaching? Let people just beat on you? Is he teaching here pacifism and violence and crime? Let them beat on you and knock you around? Is that what he's saying? No. It's in hyperbole. He's hyping this thing so you'll get it. He's exaggerating intentionally the thought. See, Jesus is teaching us how to come out of it like God. He's teaching us how to destroy hate. His point is keeping yourself under control by not retaliating. See, once you retaliate, you're going to say things you wish you had never said, and you can't get them back. You can apologize, but you're not going to get those things back. Once you retaliate, you're going to do things you can't undo. He says, listen, you got to keep control of yourself so you will not retaliate. See, life's going to throw us knockout punches. It's going to knock us out, knock us down. It's going to knock the wind out of us. Some of you just recently have gone through some knockouts. I mean, you've been poked down, knocked the wind out of you. And this is what happens to all of us. But retaliation is not what a child of God does. It's what sinners, the lost, far from God does. But if you're a child of God, you won't. What do you do then, Delbert? You do number one. You love those who hate you. Right? You do good for those who hate you. Number two, you bless those who curse you. Number three, you pray for those who mistreat you. You invoke agapao. You cause yourself, you make yourself do it. You decide to do it so that you'll be a child of God, so that you show the life of God. Father, forgive them. It's not who can hit the hardest. It's who can love like God. We may think, that's wimpish. Some of us tough guys, that sounds like a sissy. Wimpish to me. I ask you a question. What does it take the most power, most control to do? Retaliate or not retaliate? It's power under control. You are still under control. They've lost it. They're going to do things, say things they can't get back. You haven't. 629. Here's the second one, the second hyperbole. If someone takes your cloak, do not stop him from taking your tunic. All right, now, what does this mean? This is a little foreign language to us, but it's an obvious hyperbole. Once I get it to you, you're going to say, well, that's an hyperbole. All right, the cloak is the outer garment. Right? Right now, it's my shirt, it's my pants. That's my outer garment. For you women, it's your blouse, it's your pantsuits, it's your slacks, it's your dress. Okay? So if somebody comes and takes that off of you, your tunic is your undergarment. We'd say underwear. So you stand there and let them just strip you right down. Is that what is Jesus teaching us public nudity here? Is this what he's doing? It's an obvious hyperbole. He's hyping it. And I can imagine that the audience that was listening to him did exactly what you just did, laugh when he did it. He put some humor into it. He hyped it. He made it get to him. Jesus isn't talking about public nudity. He's not teaching us to strip down. Please don't take this literal. What's he doing? What's the point? To me, there are things you just got to let go. You got to let them have. It's tough. And in so doing, a lot of times when we do let them strip us down, we see our shortcomings, our smallness, our flab, in the natural. People see things about us maybe we wish they hadn't seen. But when we do this in the realm of the Spirit, we're getting it off of us. We're allowing it to go away. And it's difficult for me to do. I told you last week about the time I nearly got in a fight fishing. And that night when I lay down in the bed, hours later, I closed my eyes. I relived that whole thing again and again. I got angry and angry and angry again and again. I ground my teeth. I couldn't sleep. I lost sleep. I was stressing out, my blood pressure up. Jesus says, Delbert, you got to let that go. You got to get that off of you. Let him have it. What's the big deal? It's not worth losing 1 minute, 1 day, 1 week, 1 year of your life over. And we all know that when we stress out, it shortens our life. Our blood pressure goes up. We lose sleep. It's a toxic situation that Jesus says, you got to get off of you. Turn the situation around. Let it go. Let them have it. It's just not worth it. And so Jesus says, this is what you do. He's hyping here. You invoke your agapao, your love for them. You make yourself do what? How do you do that? Step number 1. You do good for those who hate you. Number 2, you bless those that curse you. Number 3, you pray for them who mistreat you. Third, now he gave us 3 steps. He's giving us 3 hyperboles. Here's the third hyperbole in Luke 6:30. Give to everyone. How many? Everyone who asks you, and if anyone takes what belongs to you, do not demand it back. So what Jesus is saying is that every beggar who comes along, every thief that comes along, every con artist that comes along, I just fall prey to it. Is that what he's telling me to do? No. He teaches us to be good stewards of what God has allowed us to obtain in life. He's not teaching to do this. What? Here's what he's after. I want you to destroy hate. I want you to love people the way I love people. Love people the way God loves them. This was several weeks back. I was on vacation. Judy was in Florida. I had come home for the weekend. And after church, Kevin asked me to come to his house to eat supper, eat lunch. And so we were going, and we went out and locked the doors of the building, and this woman comes walking up to me. Now, she was here. She was sitting right back there in the back. During the service, I had seen her. She was alone. But she comes walking up to me, and she's wanting more money. Now, I say more money because Don had already dealt with her. He does our benevolence, and he was dealing with her. He had already given her money. Good money. I mean, a lot of good money. They were in transit. They were moving through. They were transits. They were moving through, going someplace, and didn't have any fuel. So Don got her some gas. Okay? So here she comes wanting more money. She says, you gave us gas money, but you didn't give us any money to get some food with. And I thought, you con. And here's what she was doing, is she was riding around with this bum, this man, and he was sending her into the churches to approach people to get money. I guess it's more difficult to say no to a woman than it is to a man. So anyway, he sends her in to get the money. And I'm thinking, you con, you bums. And I said, I don't do that. I said, you need to talk to Don. I don't have his number. So I'm going to my truck to get her a card so I can write Don's number on. I'm going to give her to Don. And as I'm going, this voice that God speaks to me with when he's doing something in me and with me, he says, give her some money. I don't want to give her any money. She's a bum. The church has already given her money. He said, I didn't say give her the church's money. I said, give her your money. Well, I don't want to give her any money. These are bums. Look at this. She's just riding around with this guy. They're just going place to place, bumming around. He says, you can't buy him a hamburger? You can't buy him or her a hamburger? Oh, yeah. Well, take some money out of your pocket. Told me how much was in my pocket. And give it to her. It's scary when God tells you how much money's in your pocket. And give her the money. I said, okay. So I did it. Now, that's difficult for me sometimes to do that. But you see, it's God. It's agapao. It's loving people. I'm seeing a bum and a con. God's seeing a person to love. Agapao. And I want to just say this as fast as I can say it because some of you aren't aware of it. But every year this church gives away thousands and thousands of dollars in benevolence. Now, I used to do it. Don does it now. But what we do is when I teach giving, Jesus separates tithes and alms. And he says tithes is one thing and alms is another. Alms is what we do in secret. And he says, if you give your alms in secret, then I'll reward you openly. In other words, you don't bless people in public. You don't make a big spectacle of it. And you don't do. And the way we do it here is I ask people if they want something to go into our alms account, which we have as our missions account, then designate it, and it'll go in there. And it's totally put into a whole different account, and it's totally used just to minister to people. Now, we don't give them money. We'll buy them gas, but we'll make sure that it's gas. We'll send them to ShopRite and get groceries, or we'll pay the electric bill for them. But we try to investigate it. We try not to get conned. But I just wanted you to know that we do that. Maybe you want to participate in that. But the thought that I'm really working at is this church gives an agape. We don't want anything back. We're not expecting anything back. We don't do it publicly. How about you? Do you give anything of your own? Do you give to people that you should be given to, though you'll never get anything back? They're not your friend. How do you do that? Verse 31. Now he's given 3 steps, 3 hyperboles. Now listen. Verse 31. Do to others as you would have them do to you. We call that the golden rule. But what it is the definition of agape, of agapao love. What we usually do is we usually treat people the way we feel like they deserve to be treated, not the way we would want to be treated. The way we treat people is the way we would want to be treated. And I'll tell you what, I am in agapao kindergarten. But at least I'm in kindergarten. At least I'm trying. When I always hit that thing, somebody ministering to somebody or giving somebody something or hating enemies or whatever, I have to think about this. Well, what if God treated me the way I deserved? And that really helps me get perspective. So I'm going to treat them the way I would want to be treated. So, now what he does now, he's given 3 steps, 3 hyperboles, and now he's going to give us 3 high-definition examples of this. He's going to hit us 3 times with a high-def explanation. Here he goes. Luke 6:32. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Rhetorical question. There is no credit. It's not impressing God. It's not doing anything for my eternity. Even sinners love those who love them. This is how lost people act. If you live like this is what you do. He's saying you're lost. You're far from God. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Second time he says it. He's emphasizing it. High definition. Even sinners do that. No difference. No difference of you and a sinner. Sinner's far from God. That's what he's saying. And if you lend to those from whom you have you've expected repayment, what credit is that to you? It's the third time he says it. Even sinners lend to sinners, expecting to be repaid in full. He's hitting us with a high def explanation of these steps and of these hyperboles, and now he's bringing it home to us. Where are you? Are you a sinner, far from God? You can tell by how you respond to people and hate. Or are you a real child of God, which is what he does now? It's radically different. Luke 6:35. But, conjunction, connect the two. But love your enemies. Do good to them. This is what you do if you're a child of God. Lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then, after you've done that, then your reward will be great. And here's what your reward is. You will be sons, daughters, children of the Most High God. Most High. Because he is kind to the ungrateful And the what? I need you just to say that because I'm going to end with that thought. He's kind to the what? And grateful and what? Wicked. 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 What does that mean? What is a wicked person? God loves the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Be like God. Be like Daddy. Live like God. Act like God. Be like your Father. Be godly, godlike. Now, Jesus hasn't stopped talking about enemies, and there's a real reason he brings that back around. It's because if you can love, it's easy to love people that love you. It's easy to do good for people who love you. It's easy to lend to people that you know is going to pay you back. That's easy to do. But the litmus test is this. Can you do it for somebody who hates you? See, that's where it comes down to. And I'm in Agape kindergarten. How do you do that? But if I don't do it, if I refuse to do it, there is no then. There is no reward. And I am not a child, a son, a daughter of God. I'm not really wanting to be transformed, translated into the kingdom of heaven. I'm not real. I'm playing the church game. And I'm deceived. I'm a liar. Most of us are familiar with, I'm finishing up, most of us are familiar with the travesty that's happening right now in Penn State, at Penn State University. If you're not familiar with it, a once defensive coordinator, and at one time thought would be the replacements of Joe Paterno. His name is Jerry Sandusky, has been indicted for sexually abusing young teenage boys. And this has happened over 15 years. And Joe Paterno, along with others, have been terminated, fired, and they're also being investigated. The school's being investigated as a cover-up because they've opted for football and the money football brings in, their football program brings in. They've opted over that for the welfare of these children and what has happened. So Judy and I went to bed last night, and I turned on Fox and just ready to go to sleep. And so they go to this story again, and here comes Sandusky. And I am sick of it. I am really sick of seeing it and hearing about it. It's so tragic to me. And I said it out loud. I said, I'm sick of looking and hearing about that pervert. When I said pervert, I felt God's conviction. And shortly, I turned the television off, and I lay there and I said, Lord, why did you convict me when I said that? I said, how can you love? How can you care about somebody that wicked? And he said, you don't? He said, Delbert, I died for the Jerrys of the world. He said, if that man was in your church, if that man was a relative, if that man was your friend, and you were sent to minister to him, you had the opportunity to minister to him, would you tell him I loved him? How do you love the unlovable? Answer, agape. And the natural, only because I'm in God and God's in me that I understand what the Lord spoke to me laying in bed. Only because I'm in God and God's in me, I understand what this passage is trying to get me to accomplish and do in my life. Jesus died for him. I don't understand that. I'm not supposed to understand that. I'm supposed to pray for him. I'm supposed to bless him. I'm supposed to find some way to do something good. See, our world is just not familiar with this love. This love is way larger than enemies. This love is God. God is love. And if we are in God, we have this love. And if God is in us, this love is in us. Title is, You want me to love who? Let's pray.